everyone, you're listening to Bookworms being broadcast to you today on Arrow 92.7 FM, your community access radio channel, and Wairarapa TV on Freeview channel 41. This program is broadcast live every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. and repeated on the Tuesdays in between at 3 p.m. Now, over the course of the next 30 minutes, we'll read you some literary items that we've enjoyed recently, or not recently, as the case may be, which we'll hope you find interesting. So my name is Steve Lilliston, and with me here today is Eunice Radford. Say hello, Eunice.
Hello, everybody.
Everybody out there. So let's get started. I'll kick it off first, Uni, if that's okay.
Yes.
And then I'll pass over to you, okay?
Okay.
So I'd like to do a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to just do a quick shout out to the Masterson Library, which is an incredible facility. I use it all the time. The Masterson Library is part of the Smart Library system, which connects up to 20 or so, I think 23 other libraries in the Wellington region. So when I'm looking for a book, CD, magazine or whatever, I can search the library's website online to see whether it's there, and if it is, I can log into my account and reserve it. I can also check on my previous lending history, sort the items into author or title order, which is very useful if you want to know whether you've already read the book before. And if the book is not in the Smart Library system, i.e. it's not in any of those 23 libraries, you can actually then turn around and request that they purchase it for you. And in the 11 years that I've been a member of the library, I've requested they obtain over 50 books, and I've rarely been disappointed, and always for very good reason. They've usually got a good reason if they're not going to get the book for you, like it's out of print, which is a good reason. And another, I have to just share with you a feature I learned the other day, because I get a lot of magazines through the library, and I found out the other day that you can have a standing reservation for a magazine, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I've got 3 magazines that I get regularly, and I've set them all up to say when they come in, just notify me and make them available to me. So I do that. And it's as I say, the Masterson Library is a fabulous resource. If you're not a member, you must go and sign up. They're absolutely fabulous, lovely people, very helpful staff. This is not an advertisement for the Masterson Library. This is just fact. This is me. I use that library, and it's fabulous. So that's enough about the Masterson Library. Wonderful that they may be. The second thing I'd like to talk about is Sir Ahmed Salman Rushdie. You may have heard of him, you may not. Born in 1947, is a British Indian novelist and essayist. His second novel, Midnight's Children, in 1981, won the Booker Prize. Much of his fiction is set on the Indian subcontinent. He combines magical realism with historical fiction. His work is concerned with the many connections, disruptions and migrations between Eastern and Western civilizations. His fourth novel you may have heard of, called The Satanic Verses, written in 1988, was the subject of a major controversy, provoking protests from Muslims in several countries. Death threats were made against him, including a fatwa calling for his assassination issued by the Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran. That was in 1989. And then the British government put Rushdie under police protection. And he's got a number of accolades. In 1983, he was elected Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, UK's senior literary organisation, appointed Commandeur de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, the French organisation, in 1999. And in 2007, Queen Elizabeth knighted him for his services to literature. So he's very highly thought of. Since 2000, he's lived in the United States. Now, his latest novel is called Quixote, and that's been nominated for another Booker. Whether he wins it or not, who knows? watch this space. I've not read any of Salman Rushdie's work before, so I got this out of the library the other day, and I thought I would just like to share just one little passage I picked on. So in my head, I'll admit, in my head, I read this with an Indian accent, but I won't.
What's the name of the book, Steve?
It's called Quixote. It's spelt, well, you can see Quichotte, pronounced Quixote. And it's loosely based on the travels of Don Quixote, the pilgrimage that he goes on. So, as I say, very loosely, and that's the sort of fantasy side of it. But it's also, the whole thing is all to do with India and the US and England. So that's historical fiction. He brings a lot of history into his work with a lot of humour. Very Indian. It's just a delight to read. But I'll read you one chunk from this, and we'll just see what you think of it. So, many, many years ago, when the sea was clean and the night was safe, there was a road called Warden Road, not called that anymore, in a neighbourhood called Breach Candy, still called that, more or less, in a city called Bombay, not called that now. Everything started there, and even though his story and Quixote's were both travellers' tales, journeying through many places and arriving in the strange and fantastic land, America, all their roads led back to Bombay, if you ran the movie backwards. The origin part of Brother's Whole World, the character is called Brother. The origin part of Brother's Whole World was a little group of maybe a dozen houses on a low hill, served by a nameless dead-end lane. Nameless no longer, Shikari Bandari Lane, the maps now called it, even though nobody knew where that was. Dwarfed by the megacity that now surrounded them, he closed his eyes and walked backwards across continents and years, twirling his cane like Raj Kapoor's imitation Chaplin tramp, only in reverse. Backwards up the nameless but not now named lane he went, past the real apartment building where the fictional Smile family once lived, called Dil Pazir, which is to say acceptable to the heart, and arrived at a similar building, also real, named Nurville, the City of Light. And inside it, on an upper floor, a long balconied apartment filled with soft cushions, sharp cactus plants, and the unmistakable yodelings of the famous golden-voiced sisters Lata and Asha, singing the latest hit songs from the movies on the Binaka Geetmala, the weekend chart show sponsored by a toothpaste brand, emanating every Sunday from the walnut marquetry Art Deco Telefunken radiogram in the living room. And in the middle of the living room's large Persian rug, martini glasses in their hands, were his ma and pa, in backwards, slow-motion dancing. That Breach Candy was a tiny lost world long gone, preserved in the amber of memory like a prehistoric insect. Or a miniature universe, the past captured under a glass dome, like a tropical snow globe without snow, and in it the tiny people of the past, leading their microscopic lives. If the glass broke and they escaped into the great world beyond their boundary, how terrified they would be of all the giants all around them, as terrified as he had been when he encountered the titans of his adult world. Yet, minute as they were, the whole future flowed from them. The little tropical snow globe without snow was the birthplace of everything Brother had been and done. His parents' favourite LP was Sinatra's Songs for Swinging Lovers. Mm-hmm. Ma, always more up to the minute than her husband, liked some of the Quift Americans, Ricky Nelson, Bobby Darin, but not only the White Boys, also Clyde McPhatter and the Drifters singing Money Honey. Not Elvis. She was scornful about the truck driver from Tupelo. Who cared about his pelvis or his curling upper lip? Who wanted to step on his blue suede shoes, which were Carl Perkins' footwear first anyway? He let the film behind his closed eyes run forward now. His father owned and ran a celebrated jewellery store called Zavar Brother on Warden Road at the foot of the hill where they lived. Brother's grandfather, his father's father, had opened it long ago, and Pa had proved to be an even finer designer and maker of beautiful things than his dad. Zivar means ornamentation in Urdu, and Zavar was the Anglophile patriarch's Englishing of the word. He had been an only child, the old man, but he thought Brothers was a businesslike name, and if he couldn't use the plural, singular would do just as well. Thus, Zavar Brother, a brother without a brother. People had started calling the whiskered old gentleman Brother Sahib, Mr. Brother, and the name stuck. After Grandfather had taken his leave, Pa became Mr. Brother Jr., and so, in time, Brother would be Mr. Brother too, Mr. Brother the Third. A few doors down from the jeweller's was Ma's own little enterprise, the idiosyncratic Cakes and Antiques. A front room boasting the best patisserie in the city, and a back room in which treasures from all over South Asia could be found. Kola bronzes in perfect condition, lively company school paintings, enigmatic seals from Mohenjo-Daro, 19th century embroidered shawls from Kashmir. When she was asked, as she often was, why she sold this improbable combination of products, she would answer simply, "Because these are the things I love."
Mm-hmm.
And so on. It just goes on. I think it's delightful. I don't know. He's a new author to me, and I'm actually quite excited to find a new author. It's nice to find a new author.
Did you read the Satanic Verses?
No.
No,
that's,
I haven't either.
I seem to remember a long, long time ago picking that up and trying to read it and not getting very far.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago, and I think your tastes change, don't they, as you get older? Do you find that?
Absolutely.
You read different genres the older you get? Or?
Yeah, definitely do. Mm.
So that was my little contribution for today. So that's Salman Rushdie, and this is his latest Kashot, based very, very loosely. It's a very complex book. I'm not going to try and describe it for you, but I'll just say it's loosely described on Don Quixote and leave it at that. But the history and the humour, it's a fabulous book.
Mm.
So, Uni, that's enough from me. What have you got for us today?
Well, I thought I'd do a little bit of poetry today, and one of my favourite poets is Roger McGough. And Roger McGough is from Liverpool. Mm-hmm. And he is was a professor at Liverpool University. I think he taught history, but now he makes his living by writing poems, selling his poems and reading his poems all over the world. In fact, when I was living in Melbourne, my then husband and I went to see him at a comedy club there.
Oh, really?
And he read some of his poems, and I was finishing the end of them because I knew the poems, and he noticed and came up and actually gave me an autographed copy of one of his books, which I treasure.
Nice.
But most of his poems are humorous. Mm-hmm. And I've got a couple of my favourite to read you today. And one is called The Potato Clock. And I'm going to try and read it in an Irish accent, Steve. Sorry.
That's all right. You're allowed.
And it's called A Potato Clock. A potato clock, a potato clock. Has anybody got a potato clock? A potato clock, a potato clock. Oh, where can I find a potato clock? I went down to London the other day, found myself a job with a lot of pay, carrying bricks in a building site from early morning till late at night. No one works here as hard as me. I never even break for a cup of tea. My only weakness, my only crime is that I can never get to work on time. A potato clock, a potato clock. Has anybody got a potato clock? A potato clock, a potato clock. Oh, where can I find a potato clock? I arrived this morning half an hour late. The foreman came up in a terrible state. You've got a good job, but you lose it, cock, if you don't get up at 8 o'clock. A potato clock up at 8 o'clock. Has anybody got up at 8 o'clock? Up at 8 o'clock, up at 8 o'clock. Oh, where can I find up at 8 o'clock? So that's
lovely.
The funny one. And I actually did find a potato clock once, and it was a clock face, and it had a lead into a potato with a pronged fork, and the enzymes in the potato actually ran the clock. Did I buy it for you, Stevie?
Ah, it rings a bell. I think you might have done, you know.
Yeah.
I've not been able to get up at 8 o'clock ever since.
You get up earlier than that, I know you.
I think it's the acid in the potato, isn't it?
Yes.
Slight digression, but...
And the other one is...
I had a Roger McGough book years ago. I think you might have bought it for me.
Probably.
Or a very good friend of mine once bought it for me, called Waving at Trains.
Yes, I've got that one.
Have you?
Yeah.
And it's a series of poems, but one of them in particular I remember. I should have got you to bring it.
Yes, you should have.
And he talks about waving at trains and how people always wave at trains.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing when you think of it, isn't it? I do it myself. You wave.
Yeah. He's got an interesting perspective on life, I think. And the other one is that I wanted to read. It's quite a short one, but it's quite funny. It's hilarious, really. It's called The Leader. I want to be the leader. I want to be the leader. Can I be the leader? Can I? I can? Oh, promise? Promise? Oh, yippee! I'm the leader. I'm the leader. Okay, what shall we do? So that's it.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's my Roger McGough poems for today.
He is delightful.
Yeah.
And so what's the other one you got?
Well, my other one is a New Zealand author, Dennis Glover, and it's a very famous one that everybody knows, called The Magpies.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I bet you'd be surprised how many people don't know who Dennis Glover is.
And it's beautifully illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite sad, really. When Tom and Elizabeth took the farm, the bracken made their bed. And there's a lovely picture of them lying there in the bracken with a cup of tea beside them. And quaddle, oodle, ardle, waddle, doodle, the magpie said. Turning the page. Tom's hand was strong to the plough. Elizabeth's lips were red. And quaddle, oodle, ardle, waddle, doodle, the magpie said. Year in, year out, they worked while the pines grew overhead. And quaddle, oodle, waddle, waddle, doodle, the magpie said. But all the beautiful crops soon went to the mortgage man instead. And quaddle, oodle, ardle, waddle, doodle, the magpie said. Elizabeth is dead now, it's years ago. Old Tom went light in the head. And quaddle, oodle, ardle, waddle, doodle, the magpie said. The farm's still there, mortgage companies couldn't give it away. And quaddle-oodle, ardle, waddle, doodle, the magpies say. So that's The Magpies, written by Dennis Glover, pictures by Dennis Frizzell. Dick Frizzell.
That's quite an old one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I read that many years ago. Is he still around, Dennis Glover?
I don't
Terrible thing
know.
to say, I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know.
And who's the...
Dick Frizzell does the beautiful, beautiful drawings. If anybody can see that.
Yeah, the viewers might be able to see that.
They're quite lovely.
Yeah.
But that's my lot, Stevie, for today.
No, that's good. That's good. So, Roger McGough, that well-known Liverpudlian poet and raconteur.
Yeah.
And he's written some lovely books. He's not written any... Did you say written some plays?
Yes, it says in the front of the book here that he's written plays, and it says his work is brimming with vitality and humour and spiced with thoughtful observation. These poems will appeal to every young reader and are served up with a delicious accompaniment of some lively illustrations. Roger McGough is one of today's most popular poets, having come to prominence in the 1960s as one of the Liverpool poets.
Right.
He spends his time writing and earns his living reading his poems all over Britain and overseas in public performances and on the radio and television. He has written a number of plays and published many books for adults and children. And when I saw him, he's a very colourful character. He's incredibly thin and very tall, and he wears very interesting suits like bright red or yellow or green and white glasses. So he's very interesting to look at as well as listen to.
You must look up one of his plays then. That'll be fun to...
Yes, we should, shouldn't
do
we?
that, yeah.
As we're into plays,
Yeah.
yes. We'll do that.
We'll do that.
Yeah, I'm sure your Masterton Library will find them for you.
Indeed. You go online to the Marston Library. Yeah, they've got a very good search facility on the website. You can search on anything, and having found it, you can reserve it. Yeah, so I will do that. I'll look up Roger McGough. And you must have a read of Salman Rushdie.
Yes, I will.
This is just fabulous.
I'd quite like to read his satanic verses and see why it was so ostracised, I suppose, by
because it was
the religious.
considered irreligious to the Muslim world, I suppose, and in particular old Khomeini himself to issue a fatwa against him.
I know he went into hiding for a few years.
Oh yeah, his life was in danger.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nasty stuff.
Yeah.
I think even now he's. I don't know that they ever lifted the fatwa.
They did.
Did they?
But I think he's obviously still writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
No, well worth a read, and I will definitely get him out of the library and have a read of that. Mm.
I don't know about you, but I love reading books like that. The Irish writers. I think that's why I like the Irish writers because you really get a feeling of the country and the culture and the humour, and it's different.
It is different.
Irish is different from Indian. It's different from and it's fun to immerse yourself in a culture like that, either Irish or Indian, and you get a lot from it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. I think that's all we've got time for this week.
It is.
So we're going to
got a few more minutes.
finish up early, but that's okay. I've done all I want to do. So I would recommend for those of you who don't belong to the library, go along. It's a fabulous resource. 3 weeks to reserve a book. If it's really, really popular, I think they charge $2. I don't think, I know. They charge you $2 for a really, really popular book. But most items are free to rent for 2 or 3 weeks. So you can search online. I very rarely go into the Marston Library to browse anymore. The only reason I go in there is to either drop something off or pick something up.
But you do most of your shopping online,
and it's all done online. Yeah. So,
I belong to the Carterton Library,
oh yes,
and I must admit I always have great service from there.
right,
And they, like you, will order a book, can reserve books, and they don't charge. They used to only not charge for large print books, but now they don't charge for any of the books that come out of the library.
right, right. Yeah,
That's a new thing.
I think that's the big thing with the libraries is that they are just. I mean, all the libraries are the same, really.
Yeah,
In that they're so helpful. The librarians are so helpful.
yeah.
Direct you to anything you want to know, and they're very, very good. So yes, but the Carlton Library isn't part of the same system that the Marston Library's on, which is interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Carterton, Greytown, Featherston, Martinborough are on the South Wairarapa library system. I forget what it's called, but it's not the same. I don't know why. It's political, whatever it might be. I don't know. Two different systems, but I don't know much about the Carlton one. But anyway, I'm starting to waffle on now, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to bore you, lovely people. So thank you very much for listening, Eunice. That was fun, dear.
I hope you enjoyed our poetry readings and our readings, Steve, from Salman Rushdie. So,
yes.
and I hope that it's encouraged you all to read more books.
Indeed. And tune in again next Tuesday. There'll be a repeat of this programme next Tuesday. And then the following Tuesday at 3 p.m, there'll be a brand new version of Bookworms. So until then, thank you for listening, and goodbye. Say goodbye to the nice people.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.